La Lanterna, a spotlight in Italian football, is a podcast that dives into the beautiful game seen from the eyes of two fans from the oldest team in Italy's point of view. My name is Fabrizio Cardone, Canadian and Genovese, together with my friend Matt Killen, an American-born and Genoa fan. Every week, we'll tell you all you need to know about the only team you need to know about, Genoa CFC. Plus, we'll have guests and provide updates from around the magical world of Italian football. Welcome back to La Lanterna podcast. Here's Fabrizio, and hello to you, Matt.
Fabrizio, good afternoon. How's it going?
Not too bad, not too bad. This is like a crazy week with a whole bunch of stuff that we have to be doing, that we are actually doing on our own personal life, I guess. But it's, I don't know. Okay, I guess let's start by saying what happened over the weekend. So we saw Genoa-Parma, and okay, ended 3-3.
Yep.
And what's your take on that, Matt?
This is a hard one to respond to, I feel like. I mean, so you and I discussed, I was actually in a car when the game was going on, which was killing me. I was getting updates on my phone of what was happening. I was like, oh my God, I'm missing like an absolute like all-timer. And I watched the game afterwards, and I think a few things stood out. I mean, 3-3 a little bit, I think, flatters Parma, but I also, in a way, don't know if we completely deserve to win the game after seeing some of the stuff. I think our statistics were a lot better. But some of the things that a few of us maybe have been not as happy about with Genoa seem to show their head a little bit in this match. I think one thing that I kind of want to pick on, I don't know, Fabri, if you felt this way.
So, I'll get into mine, but I'm interested in hearing your side.
I feel like we're running our players too thin. I think some of our guys are getting really tired. And if you look at some of the goals that we conceded in that match, I mean, first of all, the first two were like really weird, fluky goals.
So I can't blame anyone on those two goals. Absolutely. It was just like 100%. And no, the Parma fans don't have to, hate me for saying this, but it was like super lucky.
Yeah. He had one goal where like this Parma guy basically was it like a bicycle, like a rainbow kick or something. Wasn't anywhere near the target, but it happened to be right next to a guy's header, and it ended up being this crazy assist that I'm sure was not an intentional thing. And then this other one, this is kind of what I was talking about, even though this happened in the first half. It took like a ridiculous deflection, I think off of Dragushin or Bondi, I can't remember who it was. But what was really upsetting for me watching the second goal is that we were so out of sorts defensively that I think it was Hefty actually on the side of the ball. He wasn't really able to get anywhere positionally on that play. He was just kind of letting, I can't remember even who it was on Parma, to come all the way to the middle of the pitch. And he had like probably 10 yards where he was just completely uncontested. He ripped a shot, got a little lucky. It took a deflection. It goes in. So, the first two goals, that felt like they kind of came against the run of play. It didn't seem like Parma was really on it. I mean, it was a pretty even game. Ish, but for me, it didn't feel like we were really being assaulted. And again, if you look at some of the shots on goal and everything else, aside from like one flurry that I think that they might have had, there weren't a ton of those things that Parma had offered. I have some individual thoughts on some of the players too, but I'm curious, Fabri, kind of how you digest this one, because that 3-3 feels like a tough result for a match like this, even though it's against a team that's one of the promotion favorites.
No, I know it's hard. I'm agreeing almost on everything you're saying. I'm not saying that whatever you're saying is incorrect or whatnot. It's definitely a different point of view of certain things from my perspective. I do have to agree that it was a very well leveled. Okay, let me actually say it in a different way. So from not a Genoa fan perspective, it was an exciting match. It was a thrilling match. And I saw even some memes that were comparing it to the Derby della Madonnina and saying, the 3-2 against Milan-Inter was nothing against with the match of Genoa-Parma. Definitely, I want to add to the fact of saying that It definitely had nothing to do with a Serie B match. It really looked like a Serie A match
Yes.
all
Yeah.
alone. I really think this was the very first contender that we actually faced. I think Parma is on my books to be on the top two, and there's nothing so far in the first four match days that I've seen so far.
Yep.
Having said that, I do agree with you with respect to the fact that, as I mentioned before, the two first goals from Parma were very fortunate.
Yeah.
However, that analysis that you had made on the second goal, I didn't really think too much about it, other than the fact of the lucky part. But I'll go and analyze it a little bit better, and I'm sure that what you're saying is spot on, because I can see that happening. On the third one,
Yeah.
I have a little bit of iffies here and there. Like there's a 50-50. Like I hear some people saying it was the defense fault. Another way they were saying, but it was all about
Martinez.
again, Martinez's and so on.
Yeah.
I think it was more on the first one, my opinion, again, on the fact that the player was just left free altogether, was able to shoot. That Martinez aspect, I don't know. I don't necessarily 100% agree. I can see that point of view, but now to your point, and just wrapping it up, and apologize for taking it on so long, but
No.
to the fact of being that, was it well deserved? Well, okay, perhaps I'm biased, but I'm going to say Genoa had the edge over Parma. Even though if you look at the statistics, depending on also where you're pulling them from, I think there was a lot more actions, a lot more shots, a lot more. Even though it was like a thin ball possession, I think if I'm looking at right now, 55-45, and that's why I was saying it was like a very well level. So at the end,
yeah.
Am I upset? Just to say this, am I upset? No. Obviously, I'm disappointed, but at the same time, what I can say is that essentially, I don't know. Did they steal the point? No. Can I look back in recruitment and say, oh shoot, we lost 2 points? A little bit, but at the same time, you're gonna as you're gonna face the lower teams, and they're gonna try to do all their best. Obviously, this is like the top two of the league contenders for promotion.
I mean, I should be probably a little bit more accepting of the match than I am, but for me, like watching it again and looking at the second half, I'm curious if you have time to kind of see this too, because I think the last goal was kind of very reflective of my opinion, I suppose, of one of the things that maybe we have wrong. Which is, I think we're really, really, really running some of our players into the ground, and some of the substitutions that we're introducing are not always as effective as they can be. And so in that last goal, I think it was Frendrup was one of the players that could have picked up the Parma player. It may have also been Hefty because it was that side of the pitch for him. There were two players that were potentially in the space that could do it. The plays just before that, I don't know if you remember, we were all the way down on the other side of the pitch, not very long before. They had I think a long ball played by the keeper. All of a sudden, they get a corner that we shouldn't have really even conceded. One of our defenders had kind of a poor pass. I think it might have been Payet. And it just was like the two players were not in sync. The entire team looked completely gassed at the end. And you could kind of see it in the reactions from Frendrup after the goal. These guys are so tired. And, the substitutions that we're making, we're kind of seeing the same things that Blessing is introducing. I thought on the positive light, Ekuban was freaking phenomenal in this match. I mean, this guy is so physically strong, but it's not just that. He's not just like a fast runner and a strong player. I mean, he had some just technical movements that were ridiculous. I mean, he was a little bit unlucky, actually, I thought, to get whistled for that goal offside, by the way, which would have been, we would have had a different kind of response for this. But
this much.
That was one. I hate that use of VAR. That for me isn't what it should be about, but I guess we're stuck with it this way for him. But he had that great, remember that somebody hit like a long ball and he like headed it all the way out like 20 yards ahead to a player and set him on free. He had a really good through ball that he had on the first goal. He had like a little kind of like a I don't know if it was a step over or if he actually did catch the ball a little bit, but he kind of helped the ball come across to the other side before Jagello hit it against the crossbar, and eventually Frendrup scores it. So I thought that Ekuban was great, but when you look at a game like this, maybe we're short on options, but our midfield was spent, and we didn't really replace those guys. We're taking off Koda, we're putting on Yelchin, we're putting on Yeboah, we're putting on these other guys, and like sometimes these players make a difference. And I think there's definitely a need for having attacking players in our squad that we're changing out and everything like that. But the way that we're kind of trying to move, when you're asking guys to be on all sides of the pitch all the time, I'd almost rather we're giving up and we're having that exhaustion at the other side of the pitch, because if it's the defensive third, that's when we're going to give up a late goal like that. And we didn't deserve to give up that late goal, I think.
No, we didn't deserve that late goal. But okay, let me just add a little bit to that comment. And I agree with you, but I wanted also to see on the different aspect from this, like the different side of the medal. So essentially, obviously, first of all, I guess Blessin is the one that knows the conditions of each player. Yeah. So whether he knows if that player can still sustain or not, that's more of a little bit of a 50-50, because we can sort of see ourselves too. But obviously, he's the mister and he has to make that call. Secondly, he knows the form of each player before, when he puts down the starting 11, even when he's ready to do those changes. So by saying this, I'm not fully fledged, eyes closed, defending Blessed, mind you. Yeah. But to his side, because it's easy to point a finger after the fact.
Yeah. Sure.
To his side, it's obviously understanding. As I said, like he did want to, like the idea of wanting to refresh that forward aspect made sense to us when it happened. Yeah. Even though we were saying, well, Koda, I don't know why he's always taking him off. Ekuban, he didn't seem tired and whatnot, but we don't know more than that other than what we have seen. And at that point, I remember commenting with other people and on WhatsApp and whatnot with the different groups and whatnot. They're saying, no, it definitely makes sense. I had this comment before everything had happened. And they were saying, now the Parma defense is going to be scrambling because they don't have any point of reference, because it totally changed, right? Mm-hmm. So what I'm trying to say is, like, if it had gone well, we would have said, Saint Blessing, he is God on earth, like the new Gasparini. Because it went this way, we're pointing the finger to him. I think a little bit unfairly, but because so far, for now, we've been facing all strong opponents, and in 4 games, we have 8 points out of 12. So that's still high, in my books.
No, I mean, you're right. And I think if Blessing does what I was suggesting, you're probably going to get an immediate reaction more of, well, why are we playing too defensive? We should be going at the juggernaut with these guys. And then if we happen to concede in that match, you have the same kind of comment. So I get it. But I think that it's...
Well, listen, we could have easily won that game 4-2, 5-2 by what was happening, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think we had a real showing for most of that match. There are certainly some positive aspects to be excited about when you're looking at kind of how we had performed. I'm going to take a little bit of credit myself. If you guys recall, we were talking about some of the interesting betting lines before the match, and I did say this is one that could have more than 5 goals, and indeed we had 6. So we knew that Parma were going to be one of those teams that could score, and then we also kind of knew a little bit, like I kind of felt this way, the statistics on our team not really allowing a whole lot of goals. I still think it was a little bit flattering for us and for our defense. I mean, it's really too early in the season to say a whole lot of anything about that, but it was.
Let's put it also a different perspective. If you look at it also on the long run, we have a better bench. So what I'm not looking is not only necessarily the specific match, but if I'm looking also of the long season, I think at the end we can have that extra edge that Parma might not have. And let's not forget, I said that before, but Parma is probably the strongest team out there.
The second, yeah, our main challenger. I would have said, actually, I agree with you. Even them over Cagliari, I think, was how I had kind of rated them to start the season. Maybe you could go either way on it, but I mean, I think there's some interesting stuff about the bench concept and comment. Obviously, like there are a couple of players that we've played Ilsanker a little bit now. Strootman hasn't really seen time. We know that that's probably going to change. We have some options in that part of the pitch that we could kind of bring guys on for, because really, I mean, Frendrup and Badal have been pretty much going completely at it the last 4 matches. I am still a little bit worried about defense. I'm not gonna lie with you. I think that like our back four is pretty much our back four. I don't know if there's really anybody on our bench that I would feel comfortable starting if any of those guys goes down. I think Payac, like I'm with you again. He looks decent in this match. Maybe he wasn't like absolutely fantastic, but he was another good game. Hefty, I think, had a couple of lapses, but I also think he really worked hard and had not a bad performance. And Dragusin actually was okay too. I know some folks aren't as big on him, but I think he had like a really key, actually off the line clearance. I think he had at one point in the match. So we've got guys that are there, but I'm a little bit worried about what happens if one of those guys go down. I do think it's going to be interesting to see how our forward line looks in the future. With Ramu in the squad, we've not even talked about Puskas, so like we don't know where he fits in. I think mainly Goodmanson and Ekuban's positions are probably not threatened all that much. We saw Portanova was dropped to the bench in favor of Jagiello. So, does another guy come in there? Does Ekuban go all of a sudden out wide again? I mean, we're not really playing in that, like I keep thinking of the 4-2-3-1. We're not really playing in that style anymore. We kind of have this kind of like 4-4-2 or 4-2-2-2, how depending on how you want to look at it, formation. But, I wonder if that kind of construction changes a little bit, because it still feels, apart from like Yeboah's goal at the beginning of the year and some bright spots from Jagiello coming off of the bench, I don't know if I've felt super compelled about our second choice options in attack, even though I agree with you. I think the talent is there. I just don't know if I think our first team generally looks like our first team for the most part.
Well, again, I think I said that last episode. Essentially, Blessin knows very well, and I think the numbers are still proving it to him. To my point, I was saying before, the starting 11 is untouchable, obviously, except that there are, and we're going to talk in a second about the disqualified people,
well, yes, that's right,
or injured, right?
Yep.
But I think he knows that's the starting 11. Now, if throughout the season things are going to change because of whatever form, whatever I don't know, extreme performance by some player versus another, that's the model he wants to move on with. Which, whether you call it the 4-4-2 or the 4-2-2-2-2, how many twos I said, I don't know, but that's what it looks like. So you're right with respects to what is it going to look like throughout. There has been comments in the week from different journalists and whatnot that are talking about he doesn't want to go with the 4-3-3. He doesn't want to go with the 4-2-1-2, whatever. I can't remember now those numbers. 4-3-1-2, because of whatever the reason, and so on. So and the comments also went along with that by saying that Blessin was not. I mean, it was a lot of pointing fingers to Blessin, but saying that he's not able to change the actual formation throughout the match itself, and that's why they were complaining again for the fact of 1-for-1 player rather than changing the actual asset of the players itself. I don't know. What's your take on that one?
I think I don't know. I don't think I'm with you that I feel kind of like he's got his formation and he's got sort of what he wants to do. I don't think it's going to be something that evolves all too much. I mean, I do want to talk a little bit about the suspension that you kind of mentioned a second ago. So Goodmanson, I think it was for something that he had said in the match. One of the players did. I don't know. Were you able to find more about what that was and the length? And all?
No, I know you wrote it to me. I tried to do a little bit of investigation other than just some like slur or some bad word. I didn't hear anything beyond that. I know Genoa is preparing or has prepared already a recurse, like with respects to, trying to fight that back to make it shorter.
Yeah.
Less than one, it's not going to happen, but hopefully one, at the very least two and not three. That's what I'm hoping
Yeah,
for.
it seems strange for him to get three. I think a number of other players received a one match ban, maybe not in this match, but throughout Serie B. So I thought it was interesting that had happened, but
I was quite surprised actually. So I don't know.
And there wasn't any, I mean, I can't remember anything in the match where that had specifically taken place, but I guess there was something that was looked into and it was decided that was the case. I mean,
I think it was a little bit extreme, the second yellow, especially because it was going to have an outcome of the red card. I think that it was already like a faulty situation by the defender. Yes, by Parma at that point, that he didn't really behave himself well, like with some sort of like an elbow raised and whatnot.
Right.
Everything also sometimes happens so fast, and there was no camera that I know of anyways when I was looking at it that was showing an up close situation of what happened there, also because the ball was not there, right? So I guess that was the reason why no camera was specifically there. And the offside, as you said, definitely that also had marked the result as well. A non-penalty also called. I wasn't too super. I mean, if it is missed, it's missed. But it had to end that way. I'm not. That's the disappointment, is in the last minute sort of thing when that goal comes like that.
It's really hard. And I mean, I do look, I am like a beer league goalkeeper. Okay. I'm not like any sort of expert in this field at all, but it's a hard one to watch when you watch a goal get conceded like that, because it's near corner. It's a really quick play. It's Parma reacted well to the cross. I mean, it almost seemed like an error, like they hit the ball too hard or something. And then there happened to be a guy standing there and there was no one on our side able to pick it up. That's kind of like the thing, like just watching that play again over and over gives me nightmares, because you can totally see as soon as the ball is kind of swung in, our players are so tired they can't even move. They're just like, they kind of are looking around watching. And then if you want to give Martinez credit, maybe this is fair, maybe this is not, like maybe he doesn't see the ball immediately because of how the defensive position is. And that's totally a space where he should be able to get quickly enough and get something out of the way, but maybe he saw it late and that was that. So
well, I do understand what you're saying. I do understand that the Payet's injury, which I'm hoping, I didn't hear any news about it.
Talking about that too.
If he's going to be coming back on the pitch on tomorrow, by the way. For us, we're recording on Thursday, by the way. And so I don't know. I didn't hear anything, so I'm assuming he's back. I don't know. Otherwise, they would have probably reported the fact that it was like a very bad injury with him.
I mean,
let's hope.
I think this will be a big loss if he's not there. I really think, again, like I can't remember if it was a cramp or something like that. I remember he needed.
That's what it looked like.
He kind of fell down, and he was immediately signaling to kind of be subbed off. So hopefully it was a minor thing and the precautions were taken, and we'll have him back.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, we're not going to have Goodmanson there, so that will be interesting. Who is he going to pick on his behalf? But what do you think? Is it going to be Portanova? Who do you think?
My hunch, just my read from Blesson is he doesn't really like to change or lead with change, and so I mean, Portanova playing. I don't know if did you play Aguero in the other position on the left? He did from the start. He replaced Portanova, but one of those two would have to go to the opposite side that they normally play on, I think.
You caught me off guard. I can't remember now.
Yeah, but either way, I think that's actually what it's going to be. I think you're going to have Portanova and Aguero and Ekuban in those kind of positions that are more or less the attacking midfield roles. And then we'll continue to see Coda up front, Friend Badel, kind of the usual suspects. So
right, and perhaps like the new because Blesson did have a conference, press conference. He did talk about that the new players, so the in the names of Strootman and Puskas and Aramu are ready, but no, he said they're not ready yet, but we might be able to see them, something to that level, anyways.
Yeah.
So we're not going to be expecting them to be at the beginning of the match, but it'll be interesting to see what happens.
It'll be interesting for sure. I mean, it's a big one. This tomorrow, really, against Palermo. I think this is going to be another test. This is our first kind of real cauldron I think we're walking into away from home. It
is just for info, we're going to be playing against a 4-3-3.
Interesting.
So I don't know. I'm not saying that might change Blesson's approach to the match. Sometimes who am I, right? I didn't do any studies to be a coach or whatnot, but sometimes you do model your formation based also on the opponents too. So I don't know if he's going to model against it or he's just going to be strict to his.
Yeah. I mean, I've not watched enough of Palermo play. I don't know if it's more of a speed game they're trying to play and get in behind us. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what we end up doing.
By the way, last minute, my apologies, Matt, but last minute news. So Gudmundsson obviously is not called up. So they just released the called up players. So Gudmundsson obviously is not there, but Sturaro is back.
Interesting. Great. Maybe the first Sturaro appearance of the season for us.
I don't know if it's going to be the first because, after the injury, he doesn't have any, I don't know, maybe the last few minutes, God knows. It depends also on his state, on his form, on how well returned he is.
It's kind of, I feel sort of sheepish. I almost forgot for a second that we still had him on the squad because he's not appeared this season, but it's a great person to have.
Listen, from last year to be super lacking in the midfield where there's a nice abundance. It's not like an extreme abundance, but it's a nice abundance.
Oh, it's good. I still think, I'm still kind of curious to see if Ilsanker plays there. I know we've mainly had him as a central defender. But you have him, you have Strootman, you have Sturaro. They all kind of are, I feel like though they all are like a little bit different. They're all defensively capable, but they have their own kind of other skills too. So, yeah, we'll see.
I don't know. It's actually, hold on. I'm just trying to read it without seeing any comments, but Ilsanker seems not in.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Wonder what happened there.
Yeah, maybe there's like an injury or something.
Yeah, or just not, some muscle distress or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. So before we go, I guess, to our quick commercial break, and I know that you're not going to be able to participate to the second half, and we're all super sad that you're not going to be there. So I'll try to double myself up to make up for your incredible support and presence here, which is impossible to fill. Okay. But what's your take on the next match, which is tomorrow for us recording?
Yes. I think it's going to be a really important test. Obviously, like without all the other platitudes and stuff, we had a match where we probably should have won. We got a draw. A draw is not a horrible result against a really good team like Parma, but still probably a little bit of a disappointing one. We're going to be missing one of our more quote-unquote talismanic players in Gudmundsson. And we're playing away from home in a stadium that's going to be fully ready. Palermo, I think this might be one of their first big matches at home. And the home support is going to get behind it. There's going to be a little bit of this underdog thing, which I think they're carrying throughout the season, but probably especially against teams like us, which are really expected to kind of be fighting for those promotion places. So I think it's going to be a really fun match to watch, again, for the neutral. I think for us, we're probably going to have a little bit more anxiety with it because I think it's going to probably be pretty close. My prediction ahead of the match is Genoa to win 2-1. I think it will mainly be a comfortable-ish performance, but I do think Palermo will get a goal and maybe make the second half a little bit more interesting. So,
wow. So
we'll
you see a Genoa win 2-1.
I think Genoa will win. Yeah, I think we'll respond.
Interesting. I this time around, I'm going to be, last time around you said that Genoa was going to lose.
Yeah.
I said Genoa was going to win. At the end, it was somewhere in between. This time, I don't see Genoa losing. I do see Palermo going to come. I think if I'm looking at, the stats here, the last 5 are actually not bad at all. I mean,
had a good run of games.
They started. If I'm actually, I'm seeing it the opposite. They started with a win, then they had a draw, and then 2 losses. So they're definitely come with they'll have the knife in their teeth, and they're not going to be sitting there waiting for us. But I think it's going to be a tough match, less spectacular compared to the Parma one. It's going to be a little bit more dry, in my opinion, and I probably see 1-1.
Yeah, I was equally fooled with you. I was looking at their earlier results this season, and I thought some pretty impressive wins and draws. They're now on 3 separate matches with a red card. I don't know which I think is highly interesting, but maybe that says a little bit of what this match is going to be like. I mean, I think you could expect, again, I know not to be the Serie B tropes of it being more physical and whatever, but
the last loss against Regina, I honestly did not see it, so I do want to look up a little bit into it. You're right about the red card. I mean, it was on both sides, but against Regina, but it was a 3 loss. I know it was in Reggio Calabria, not too far from their home ground, quite rivals, I guess, from the south itself. But nevertheless, I mean, Regina is like another one that is like waking up. So it's a little bit just to pay a little bit more attention around them, right? With Pippo Inzaghi on the bench as a coach. But, I don't know. I don't know what to take out of Palermo. I thought they would have been a little bit hotter, I guess, with respects to better performance or better results. We'll see. It'll be interesting. And in the second half with our guests, we'll probably be able to speak more closely to understand what's the takes and, from the more in the inside type of comments.
I'd love to hear more. I mean, for me, I still think that they're a Serie B like bogey team. I think they're a team that, they just got promoted from Serie C, like that's fine. But obviously they're a really big name, and they're a team that can definitely get you for sure. So we got to be a little bit careful with it.
Absolutely. So this wraps the first half. We're going to go to our quick commercial break, and we'll see you back after the break, and we'll have our special guests for Palermo.
My name is Fabrizio Cardone, and I approve this message.
And welcome back to the second half of our podcast. Unfortunately, as I told you guys before, Matt is away and he just had to run away, and he apologized for not being here. But I'm not going to be alone. I actually have our special guest, as you guys know, that the next match is going to be at Palermo. It's going to be Palermo against Genoa. And we have a special, tremendous guest, I might say, Anthony from Australia. Welcome, Anthony, to our podcast. How are you?
Thank you, Fabrizio. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be on. Excited to talk about Genoa, Palermo, and Serie B and other culture stuff. Yeah.
Actually, that's good that you said that. I wanted to first of all compliment you on this on your page, if I may say, Twitter, and we'll talk about after also where else people can follow you. But I really, when we first were like fetching for different teams, of course, not too familiar with the Serie B. And I'm not saying that with snobbiness, but I'm just saying that because it's just normal, I guess.
Yes.
But how can you not know about Palermo, though? But anyways, what I wanted to say was like the super enthusiastic when I saw your page about Sicilian football. So I'll let you explain it a little bit more. But essentially, it's like covering all teams of Sicily, whether that is Serie A right now, but not too much, right? But Serie B, Serie C, Serie D, like everything. That's like tremendous job, and I like bow to you for that.
Yeah, thank you. No, I've been running it since like early 2019. I had this idea that originally I'm a sports journalist. I do that for my work, and I also do digital content work for a marketing firm. So on the side, I really wanted a project that was like unique in the aspect when it comes to covering, culture in general. I mean, you have people like Italian Football TV doing the whole spectrum, doing a great job. But I wanted to go more specific. I said, okay, I'm Sicilian. No one really covers Sicilian in the, even in the mainstream, English or Italian cultural media. So I thought, yeah, I'll give this a go. And so, yeah, it's basically I started this brand from like scratch. And so what I do is I don't really write a lot with it. I do more, it's more graphically orientated, backed up with a bit of written work as well. So I basically cover teams from so there's no Sicilian teams currently in Serie A, and there haven't been since Palermo was, I think, in 2017. So yeah, I've basically covered Serie B, Serie C, D, fifth tier, which is like regional eccellenza. Sometimes I cover sixth or seventh divisions, and that just to create a bit more of an awareness of what other teams there are on the island, because we all know what Palermo, Messina, Catania are, but even though Trapani have been to Serie B, not many people still know about what Trapani is about. But obviously the problem in the last couple of years has been that Palermo, Catania and Trapani have all gone under bankruptcies. So they've all basically Phoenix clubs now that have restarted. So it's Sicilian football is one of those things that, I started covering it maybe when it was at its darkest moments, the Sicilian teams. But with Palermo now on the rise, hopefully, and the new Catania that just restarted, hopefully it's, a new shining light.
No, absolutely. And I think what you're describing from the Sicilian standpoint is almost like the shadow that we have on the Calcio Italiano, which is, we've been talking not only ourselves, and as you mentioned, also all different type of podcasts and whatnot. It's like what is happening? Where is the Italian culture going to go? And what's happening? And we're seeing a lot more change actually in the Italian scene per se. And that brings me to also ask you a little bit more about your thoughts and your views of the new ownership that now happened to Palermo, as we all know.
Yeah.
It's like this huge conglomerate that came over, and the Man City, right? They came in and got the City Group. I don't know how it's called specifically, and I apologize for that. And they purchased the Palermo. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So last year or last season in general, Palermo, I think it was their second consecutive season in Serie C. They were on a bit of there was a time frame there that they needed to, I think, get to Serie B in a short amount of time. They didn't really have the financial backing with Dario Miri and some other people in the ownership, I think, to stay, and compete in Serie C to really go for that Serie B spot. So they were there was a rush to get to Serie B. So thankfully they rallied, their players. They got that the coach Baldini, who's now not there anymore, but they had a fantastic run in the playoffs. And thankfully they got promoted through like that, with Brunori scoring the amount of goals that he was. I mean, it was just spectacular. The stadiums that were packed at the Barbera. So it was great that they got promoted, and I think Football City Group were looking, just at that time when Palermo was about to start the playoffs. So I think that really the move for Football City Group to purchase Palermo, I think they were really motivated with the reason that they got to Serie B. And so that's why they, I think, purchased them. Otherwise, if they would have not made it to Serie B, I don't know if Football City Group would have really still bought them. Just the fact that, you know, they're still in Serie C, to get out of Serie C is very difficult in itself. But they're here in Serie B. They managed to get that job done. Football City Group, you know, did the takeover. Dario Miri, he's still a stakeholder in there. I'm not sure the exact percentage. I don't know if it's 10 or 20% that he owns still within the stakeholder. But yeah, Football City Group. Many people would have thought they're going to get that, you know, that round logo that Man City's got, or even in Australia we have Melbourne City with the same type of logo, that light blue, and that. Obviously they're not going to change the color for Palermo, but many people thought logo change, but it didn't happen, which was good. But to tell you the truth, I'm not even a fan of this current logo they have. I really like the old school logo they had before they went bankrupt. But yeah, no, it's been, now they got like, they had an okay market, if you want to say. They still kept Brunori. They managed to sign him permanently from Juve. And they got some other good players like Di Mariano, which he is a Palermitano himself. And I don't know if you know, but he is the nephew of legend Totò Schillaci.
No way. That's incredible.
Yeah, so he's there's that bit of connection there as well. And you got I think there's a Romanian centre back that they got. I don't know the exact pronunciation, but I think you know the one I'm talking about. It starts with an N. I don't want to pronounce it because I might pronounce it bad or wrong. But yeah, so they've managed to keep some players, and a lot of the Serie C players that they did have, though, they did leave, like Luperini, a lot of other players like Di Ros. And then they still managed to, what's the name? Roberto Floriano has been with them since Serie D, and he is still there playing in Serie B, which is fantastic to see. And I think he's 34 or 35 years of age, so he's still got the pace and the legs in him to be competing in Serie B. But they went through a coach change as well at the start, or just before the season started. So they got Corini in now, who coached Palermo in the past and recently coached Brescia in Serie A. I think so. The way they started in the Coppa Italia first, and they did all right. They beat Reggiana 3-2. They then lost 3-0 to Torino, and people thought, well, this is going to be a terrible season in Serie B. We haven't signed players that are at the caliber of Serie B, but they still got Brunori, other good players. And now in the recent weeks, they have managed to make good signings to bolster that squad up. But I think Palermo, they started really well against Perugia in the first round, beating them 2-0. And then they have a 1-1 draw with Bari, which they could have won. And then, you know, they lose to Ascoli. All right, fair enough, because Ascoli, they have been a good team in recent times in Serie B with a new Italian-American ownership. And they got, they had that 3-0 loss to Regina last weekend, which, yes, it wasn't good. Palermo is in a bit of an inconsistent run at the moment, but now Genoa, it's going to be interesting. And I see that Genoa, what are they? Are they fourth or in the top four at least, right?
Well, yeah, it's hard to say because, you know, at the fourth match, it's a little bit tough. Technically, it's in the second spot at par with Ascoli, with Regina, Frosinone, and Brescia, all three at 9 points.
Yeah. No, it must be too, like, for being a Genoa fan, you know, or just Genoa, you know, in general, to be going down from Serie A to Serie B, that's a massive shock in its own. Although it's not a massive shock for me, because Genoa were in a period of mediocrity for a long time. Let's be honest, right?
Absolutely.
And I could see this coming, that,
Well,
every
yes.
season they were just surviving, doing just enough, like Kievo was for a good period of time. But then it comes to the point where, Salernitana had a really great run towards the end of the season. You had others like Spezia just surviving that. You got Genoa then that thinking they were too comfortable that they were going to survive, but, then they go down. And here is a club that's won 9 Scudetti in the past, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, and so now you're competing in Serie B, and you are probably one of the favourites to go back, but you're going to be. I think Genoa can fall in that trap of you're going to be stuck in Serie B for quite a long time if
it doesn't happen immediately. That's the one of the first things that I've learned since the drop. And that's what, like, the typical picture that I always want to look at is like, look at what happened to Parma. They fell down and they said, okay, we're going to come right up after, right? And it didn't happen. And that's what Serie B is all about. It's a superly underrated league. It's very highly snobbed by the typical news, by the journalists, and from the fans themselves too, because you probably know better than I do that the whomever is from different cities or towns with teams that are in Serie B, C, or whatnot, they tend to, for some whatever reason, it's like something that for us Italians, I guess, to root for like the most famous team. So you get people, I don't want to say one for another, but let's say some people from Trapani to say, okay, yeah, I am Trapanese for pro Trapani, but I'm also, I don't know, Juventino or Interista or something like that.
I totally agree with you 100%. There is this problem, or I don't know if you could call it a problem, but it is that cultural, how do we say, shift in a sense over the years that, yes, a lot of Sicilians do root for Juve or Inter or Milan just for the fact that, they're in Serie A, they compete in Champions League, they've won Scudetti, right. But I think relatively in Palermo in itself, I think with the population, I think the Palermitani abroad, they're more susceptible to that Juve, Inter, Milan following. But Palermitani in Palermo,
it's a bit different.
Yes, you rarely you'll find a Juventino or Milanista over there. It's pretty much Palermo, Rossonero. That's what they believe.
But forgive me if I say this, but except for the last few years after the bankruptcy and whatnot, I can remember, not necessarily always, but I would always remember Palermo in Serie A. Right, like Serie A, then 1-2 years in Serie B, then comes back to Serie A.
A yo-yo club.
So it was always somehow a little bit Catania too, but I remember more Palermo in Serie A anyway. So I can see why a Palermitano remains more faithful to the home city, I guess. But that's the sad part, and that's why I was like so enthusiastic to see your page, because it was like, that's pure, the real sense of where you come from, your roots and whatnot, and you're not going to go in and root for a team from a completely different city, right?
Yeah, well, like, as when I was like a small child, I was 10 when Italy won the World Cup in 2006, right? I grew up with players like Buffon, Marchisio, other players like Pirlo. I watched a lot of Juve because Buffon is like one of my favorite footballers and that, right? But it's not like I really rooted for Juve. I've always, ever since I went to Italy when I was like a little, well, not really little, but I was 13 or 14 when I went to Italy for the first time. And being in Sicily and seeing just the way the people in Catania, they support that club, and I remember I didn't go to an actual game, but I did see it with relatives there on a TV screen, Catania versus Milan. I think it was a 1-1 draw, but just the passion that there is for Catania, and your roots, that you actually come from, that province, those areas. It's a different feeling, a different connection to what it is up north, that you have no affiliation with it. And that to me was a very special feeling that you can't buy.
Absolutely.
And yes, it's incredible. And that's why, Napoli the other day, they beat Liverpool 4-1. The passion in there and the connection that the Napolitani have with their city and their own football club, there's no greater feeling than that.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you. And the fact that you were telling me that you have more, like your ancestry is more from Catania, if I remember that well.
Yeah, they all come from the province of Catania. Not exactly in the Città di Catania, but maybe 20 minutes away. So they come from a town called Milo, which is not far from Mount Etna.
Right. So that's fair enough. But but the fact that you're embracing also your roots from your regional aspect, and still being able to follow and comment on Palermo and or Trapani, as you mentioned before.
Yeah,
it's like just beautiful. So what do you think in general? You mentioned a few things, but in general of this new change to the Italian calcio italiano, with these new ownerships coming in, is it for the good, meaning changing up a little bit that sole ownership that was, reigning, doing whatever he wanted, he or she, mostly always he, but whatever he wanted with his own money and whatnot, like whether that was dirty money or whatnot? Or do you think now with the coming of these new multi-properties, or Americans or British or even Chinese per se, that are coming into Serie A, is it for the better of the leagues?
Well, see, at least, I think, well, we talk about, Catania. They recently just restarted. So they're now called not Calcio Catania, but Catania SSD. And their new ownership is Italian-Australian. So there is the owner is Ross Pelligra. And so he owns a construction development company in Australia, one of the biggest in the nation. So he took this new.
Did you have part of that?
yeah, I wish. But so he started it up, and he got invested into this new Catania. And there are also former Australian soccer players in the project as well. So there's a person called Vince Grella. Have you ever heard of him?
No.
He used to play in Serie A back in his times too. He was a Socceroo Australian national team player, and he used to play for the likes of Parma and several other Italian clubs. Okay. And then there's another person who is behind the scenes too, Marco Bresciano, another Italian-Australian, played for Palermo in the past as well, the Australian national team. He was probably good enough to even play for the Azzurri if he wanted to. But so, I feel that this new ownership for Catania is going to go really well. One thing, because I find the Italians abroad, I don't know, I find them more realistic compared to the Italians within Italy. I think so much bloody corruption in Italy. It's just, it's scattered everywhere. And I think the former owners of Catania, Palermo and all that, they were just, there was so much there that, it was no surprise they went bankrupt, right? But you have problems with getting things done in Italy. There's always those barriers that they can't get these projects done. And I feel that, I think these Italian-American and Italian-Australian ownerships, I think they will do well. They will have to battle with the likes of councils and that corruption itself, like Rocco Commisso with Fiorentina. He's trying to build that new stadium. I don't even know if he'll even get to design or start the foundations of a new project, because you just look at that corruption and with those councils, and things are slow. Things don't get done in that country.
Yes, so it's not even from the federation per se. It's also from the governments, all the different levels of governments as well.
Exactly. And that's been the problem with the stadium facilities in Italy for a very long time. That's why a lot of them are crumbling, these stadiums.
Nothing happened since 1990, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, majority of these older generations, they're living in that 1990 era, thinking that yes, we're still the best in the world, but things have changed. You look at the EPL, and they got this kind of policy with their stadiums that they're kind of like 360. So when I mean 360 is that the fans are very close to the pitch. There's no more Olympic tracks around stadiums. They're all renovated. Majority of them probably all own their stadiums. They don't belong to councils, so they don't pay rent. So it's another smart way. It's Juve, I think Sassuolo and Udinese are the only 3 clubs in Italy that don't pay rent to the council because they own their own stadiums. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the only 3 clubs in Italy that do that. But
that's correct.
I think, yes, with the new ownerships of Italian American, Italian Australian, and other owners from abroad, I think, yes, you will see them have a little bit more, I think, success than, so to say. I mean, the only ownerships I could say, like you have the Agnelli family with Juve and that, but they're so wealthy. We all know about that. But in Bergamo with Atalanta, they have that ownership there. They're doing a fantastic job with Atalanta.
But now I think, if I'm not mistaken, they kind of sold, I think, half of it, right? So I think they're half owners and half from an American investment firm as well.
Okay, right. I have to look more into that. Yeah, I think I think it's Percassi who's
that's right,
the owner in there. So he might have done a new deal like that, right? Which will probably be better for them. They might get more funds in that respect. But they're one of the other ones that are doing fantastic. I mean, Sassuolo is as well.
Well, then you can get the likes of Lazio and Napoli themselves too, right? With De Laurentiis.
Yes, I mean you could say that. I mean, De Laurentiis has done I think a fine job with Napoli, and he's trying to get Bardi up there as well. But in that respect, there is still a long way to go, I think, with a lot of stuff off the pitch for Italian football to kind of, rise up there. The quality on the pitch, the quality on the pitch is great. Serie A, I'd say in the last 4 or 5 years, in terms of quality on the pitch, the amount of goals scored, they're setting new records. It's not that defensive league anymore, which is great. It's got that attacking vibe to it. But in terms of off the pitch, there is a long way to go, I'm afraid.
Okay, so let's talk quickly about the next match coming up. So Palermo-Genoa, you did talk already about a few things. So we have that Palermo started with a great momentum itself. Yep. That tie with Pari was just beautiful, and I absolutely agree with you. I thought Palermo had the better edge on that match, even though it was spectacular no matter what. And then I don't know what happened there, like a little bit of a, mind you, again, you said that too. Ascoli and Regina, are doing quite well, actually, surprisingly. But like Bari, I knew it was going to be a possible, like, even though they were with Palermo, newcomers and whatnot from Serie C. Ascoli, to me, is a little bit of a surprise. And in fact, we see them up there with us. But Regina with Pippo Inzaghi is quite, I think it's like the surprise of the championship, even though it could have been expected. But the 2 losses hurt you guys. So I guess what's your expectations of the game coming up, even though we will be in Palermo? So I don't know. What's your thoughts?
Well, it's going to be tricky. I mean, have you even lost a game yet, Genoa?
Genoa, no, comes from a form of win, draw, win, draw.
Yeah. No, I think bouncing back from a 3-0 loss to Regina that's going to be quite a very hard task. And I mean, the game against Ascoli, there was a couple of goalkeeping errors, defensive errors, and it was that striker that scored, their top striker that scored a hat trick. But I didn't really expect them to lose 3-0 against Regina like that. So now against Genoa, I'm kind of, on, the fence of, I don't know what's going to really happen. It's very unpredictable to say because, I mean, this is not just in Serie B this season, but Serie A in general. You got a lot of the top teams that are just unpredictable. There's a lot of inconsistency this season, you can tell. But with Palermo, yeah, you don't know. If Brunot is going to be on his game, if he's going to be on fire, well, I think they stand a really good chance. But defensively for Genoa, they seem quite all right, don't they, this season?
Yes, except the last match, mind you, was against Parma, which is another serious contender for the direct promotion themselves, which it ended with a 3-3.
Right, so yeah.
So that's except for that one.
Except for that one,
we conceded only 1 goal in 3 games. So defensive wise, again, except that specific match.
The other one, yeah.
No, it seems to me quite a little. I mean, this tie 3-3 came a little bit of a shocker with respects to, oh my God, what's going to happen? The fear from my perspective, you probably didn't hear the first half, which when I was with Matt and we were talking about predictions of the upcoming match, and he was, in his opinion, Genoa is going to win it. But I said to him, I don't know. Barbera is known not to be easy. And going to Palermo, no matter what, Genoa, historically speaking, he sent me some stats and I don't even want to read them because last time Genoa has, mind you, we haven't been, Genoa and Palermo haven't been like playing against each other for a while now.
Yeah.
But last time Genoa has won against Palermo in Palermo was in the early 2000s.
Wow.
So that's quite a bit, right? And if you talk about, and I'm just going off of memory, so I don't, forgive me if these are not correct stats, but let's say out of the last 10 matches at the Barbera, at the Palermo was basically always a winner. And except that one win like in 2005 or 6, whatever that might be, I think there's nothing. It was mostly all wins from Palermo.
Right. Yeah, so it's going to be, I think, it could go 3 ways. Whether Palermo has a really bad day at the office in the defense and they just keep making bad elementary mistakes, that will then lead Genoa to, it could be 2-3-0. Or there could be, a tight tussle, which could make it, a draw. Or Brunot is on fire and I don't know, spectacularly they might do something. But those are the best scenarios I can picture. But yeah, Palermo do need a win to get back up into at least the top 8 because, as you see, even if you draw in Serie B, you slip down. Palermo, the 2-0 win against Perugia, first opening day, they were up in the top 4, I think second or something like that. And then against Bari, against, Ascoli, Regina, you just, you tumble. And it can be, become quite a theme if you have this inconsistency in Serie B. I think, for Palermo this season, if it wasn't for the Football City Group takeover, I think there would have been this expectation of, okay, we're just going to stay in Serie B to survive. We just want to stabilize the project at this level. And it's going to be a transitional season. Although, the Football City Group, they did buy them. And I think the expectation was, well, let's accelerate this project to Serie A this season, not next season or in a few seasons' time now. So I think there is this added level of pressure on Palermo. They basically got a new squad from last season, a new coach. So I think they're still trying to find that that gel, to gel together and to combine well. Which I did think at the start, against Perugia. I wasn't expecting Palermo to beat Perugia, to tell you the truth, because I did think Palermo was going to have like a really, really bad start. But they started all right. Now they're slipping down to what people expected. But I think, I think if they can get the combinations right, and if these players gel well together with the new players that came in and they build nicely against Floriano, Brunori, I think they can do all right. Palermo going up front, attacking, they're good. They play good football. It's defensively that, doesn't give me that confidence.
Okay.
For Genoa,
So you're saying essentially the weakest spot is the defense, right? Right now, anyways. While for the forward, the attackers, you're saying that you can have the bad day or the good day, but mostly it's with those good days, it's like a tremendous forward, a tremendous attack and whatnot. What do you think about the new signing of well, not signing itself, but with Corini, the new coach?
Yeah, Corini. Well, he's kind of like one of those yo-yo coaches, right? A bit like Lencini or Iacchini, the coach.
Oh God, yeah.
One of those coaches. They're kind of like yo-yo coaches that go from relegation clubs to sometimes a mid-table club, and they'll do well here. And Corini, he used to play for Palermo back in his day too, and he coached him in. Don't know the last time when he coached him, but he did coach him quite a while back. But he's got some Serie A experience with Brescia and other clubs, but I don't know if he's got like that real element of like, does he have his own unique football style to take this team forward? That's the sense I'm kind of going with here. Like, I think they could have gotten another coach that kind of had maybe a bit more style to go forward, I think. But
could it be, I'm just going to throw it there. Could it be because Citigroup is just trying to get their feet wet, trying to get a more understanding? I'm just throwing it there. I'm not saying I know anything. It's just like an idea. And perhaps just seeing where Corini can bring them, and then maybe slowly, grow the team differently, slowly, rather than just jumping it directly. Yeah. Maybe the expectation of the Citigroup is showing the Serie A target, while maybe their goal is just to take it easy. Maybe, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you could be right. I mean, that's 100%. Yeah, that could be right. But I think, I just think, with the Citigroup, they do have cash to splash, and you just don't. You want Corini to do well, but if he keeps on going on bad runs like this, and it comes to December and Palermo are at the bottom part of the table, so to say, they're not even mid-table, then you're going to have problems where they're going to bring in another coach. And then if that doesn't go well, and you're just going to repeat that old Palermo story from the Zamparini era. So, we
all remember that.
Yes, it was more coaches in a season than actual transfers.
And I think between Zamparini and Preziosi, which was Genoa's previous owner, I think between the two of them were the competing against who had the most coaches in a year.
There's something in common, yeah. I mean, what's his name? Ballardini,
yeah.
Ballardini,
he came back 4 times. He came back.
Oh my God, just incredible! That's like a new record right there. But yeah, I think the Citigroup, maybe they're less ambitious than what maybe the fans and the locals are at the moment, I think. But you never know, because last season in Serie C, Palermo, they even lost to Catania. Just before Catania went bankrupt, Catania beat them in the derby 2-0. and Palermo looked like they were going nowhere. They looked like they were going to stay in Serie C. In the end, they got Baldini, the coach. He took them on a fantastic run with, got the players together to play their best football. And they got promoted that way through the playoffs, which no one expected. So anything can happen. I mean, there's more playoff spots more playoff spots in Serie B, but it's the top 8 in Serie B that gets you, within a chance of Serie B promotion, Serie A promotion. So anything can happen. I still expect Palermo maybe to get a playoff spot. I think 1 or 2 is way out of reach. I don't think it's realistic. But I do think Palermo this season, they might hang around 7, 8. That's just being honest with. I don't think Corini is that coach to take him to that
level. Do you think
to drive him up 1 or 2? No, I don't think so.
I mind you.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's really early in the season, mind you, but
it is.
And as you said, everything can really happen. It can go very well, and then everybody's going to be raving for him, and it could go still completely, miss chances and whatnot, and then we can see the bench just totally change direction. But again, it's rarely early. But do you foresee him completing the season?
I don't know. I'll give it 50-50. To tell you the truth.
Wow, that's quite high. Yeah.
Yeah, because if just say if he has another 5 games or 6 games that are just plain awful with no wins in it, I could see him leave.
Yeah.
I think they're going to just get impatient. They want results. And I mean, now that the team Palermo have is actually pretty good. It's not built up with those Serie C players that they had last season. They got players in there who have, this Francesco Di Mariano. He's won promotions with Venezia, Lecce.
So he's a veteran.
Yeah. And he's only at the age of 25, 26. So he's got that experience in Serie B with those clubs to go to Serie A. He hasn't really broke out in Serie A. That's why he's always came back to Serie B and done it again with another club. But, I mean, Brunori is a player who could easily play Serie A. Floriano does well for his age. And, I mean, they've got these other players that seem to do well. And there's other players that, have Serie B experience. So I think, yeah, they are expected to do something better than this. And I understand it's early in the season. They've got to still have time to gel. But I don't know, losing to Regina 3-0. And I know...
Was that a wake-up call?
Yeah, I know they're doing great with Pippo Inzaghi, but it's still Regina, who are a club that this is their third consecutive season in Serie B since Serie C promotion. So, and they're not one of the biggest budgeted clubs out there too.
That's true too.
They come from Calabria, who a lot of them are humble clubs, just like the ones in Sicily. So they haven't got that luxury of spending. Now Palermo is in a different era. They got this financial backing, but at the end of the day too, football has to speak for itself on the pitch. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just not the biggest fan of Corini, to tell you the truth. He had his chance to prove with Brescia, but got sacked, and yeah, so.
Absolutely. So, yeah. Okay. So I guess before we wrap up the podcast, I would say, I'm just going to throw it at you. What's your take on the final result? What's your prediction? The magic number.
Magic number. Ooh, it's a tricky one. See, I gave you 3 scenarios, so I'm going to just try and pick one out.
Okay.
I'll give it 2-1, but I'm on the fence though. I think it can go either way for 2-1.
So 2-1 for the home team, I'm guessing.
I'd say 2-1 for Palermo, or it could be 2-1 for Genoa. That's how I see it. I'm kind of in the middle here. Like it could go either way.
Oh, wow. So you don't see a tie. You're going to see either one of the two coming out winner.
I reckon. Yeah.
Wow.
I reckon there will be a win, but yeah.
That's quite interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So, Anthony, so where can people meet you, reach out to you, and contact you?
So you can look at my Twitter page, Sicilian Culture, or you could go to Instagram, and we're on there, Sicilian Football Official. And we're also on Facebook. You can find us there. Yeah, they're pretty much the platforms that I pretty much promote all my Sicilian football content. Yeah, so it's quite interesting. On Facebook and Twitter, you have a lot of Sicilians from Sicily, but you have more of the Sicilians abroad that are following there. And on the Instagram page, yeah, you have people from all over the place, but predominantly it's all from Sicily itself. So it's kind of funny how the algorithms of each different platforms work. Yeah,
it's quite bizarre, interesting at the same time. How, if you don't mind, are you going to be watching the match?
So in Australia, it's so difficult.
I was going to ask, yes.
Anything. So whether you have to stream it or find something, but
what time would it be in Australia? So
let me just check on my app. It probably will be early in the morning on.
So it's at.
It's going to be Friday night in Italy,
right?
Which will be what, Friday morning for you, or?
So it'll be Friday at 2:30 our time. So if I had to do the conversion, it'll be 4:40 a.m. for you.
It will be 4:30 a.m. in Saturday morning for us. Yeah, so that's what happens when we're in winter season. The 1 hour behind. But in summer, you get 6:30 games. It's great.
It's great.
Yeah, but it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. I'll make some graphics for it too and get it up and running. But
we'll definitely tag you on all the platforms as well.
Definitely, yep, absolutely. I'm just also having a look at injured and suspended players, and I forgot to mention this. Palermo have such a poor discipline record this season so far.
Matt was telling me it's like almost every match, a red card. What's up with that?
They have got a red card, or whether it's the opponent that's also got a red card as well. So they really need to fix up their discipline. I mean, because they are missing players like Jeremy Bro, who plays in around the defensive midfield section. He's out. You got players like Betella, who is one of those newer players on loan. Yes, suspended as well. So it's just also you have a player that's suspended as well, Goodmanson.
Goodmanson, the winger, yeah. That was a hard hit from last match.
Is he predominantly a full-time starter?
Yes, he is. He was one of the first signings from the new ownership last January before, even though we were almost down in City B, but, he's been rock solid since.
Yeah. No, it's going to be interesting. And especially, Genoa, a club that it's still so unique that we've got in contact that it's hard to find Genoa fans abroad,
Absolutely.
Or Palermo fans or Catania fans, in general. Everyone goes for Juve and that. So still great that we had this chat, which was
absolutely. I agree with that. I think we should promote even more. I mean, we are, but more and more and more all the other teams, and not only what I always say to Matt, I call them the 7 sisters. It's not only all about those, people. It's also about all Italian soccer.
Genoa, they have more Scudetti than Roma and Napoli combined, or
absolutely, you're right.
Even with Lazio in there. So even clubs like Bologna, clubs like Pro Vercelli, who is in Serie C, they've won, I think, 5 Scudetti in the past.
Something like that. Yes, you're right.
Well, that was before football, was really in the industrial revolution and professionalized and that.
It still had to start some. That's what I always say.
They still have those Scudetti. So I just find it fascinating when I see sleeping giants. That's what I call them. I call Genoa a sleeping giant. They are, because they're one Scudetto away from getting the star.
Just one. We just need the one.
So when does that one come? And I think Torino is not far off. I think they're on 8 or 9, right?
Yeah, I think I can't remember now well, and I apologize for not remembering, but I think it's either Bologna or Torino are the next beneath.
Yeah. So in that respect, So there's no reason why I think Catania, Palermo, they should aspire to clubs like that to try and achieve good things. Try and emulate Atalanta. What they're doing is fantastic. So
absolutely, it's like incredible. It's the Cinderella story, and absolutely. I think as they manage to do it, why can't anybody else do it? Mind you, having had him as a coach, I understand who he is with Gasperini. He is the all in all, and I remember when our Preziosi have given him, he basically gave him to Atalanta. They were like, "Are you serious? I'm not going to say no. Just give him to us." In fact, looked at what happened.
And he used to coach Palermo too for a little period of time, and things didn't go. I just think where he is at Atalanta, I don't think he'll be able to emulate it anywhere else. It's kind of like what Sarri did with Napoli. It hasn't really worked out with other clubs. Maybe a little bit at Lazio with some of the style of football.
A little bit.
But not that consistency like there was at Napoli. So, exactly. That's what makes football culture in general very interesting. And especially since the pandemic hit, I think that inconsistency has been around a lot of clubs. And it's made it quite interesting.
Yes, and I think, as I mentioned right at the beginning, when we started with you, but I think that the more and more we need to have more and more of Serie B. I think it's an exciting league. Yeah. Why in England people are interested to the Championship, which is their second league, but in Serie B is like you said yourself, like it's hard in general for Australia to find matches. But here in Canada, US, it's different. But here in Canada, there is no TV channel that has the rights for Serie B. It's just like, awful. Why?
Awful. Yeah. And exactly. And, going back to England, I mean, they have up to their 4th division is professionalized. In Italy, it's only up to Serie C, and that's it.
Serie D it's almost semi, right? Like,
yeah, it's basically semi-professional, right? And you have, and the other problem is Serie C is way too many teams in there.
Yes.
You don't need 3 groups. Maybe just condense it to 1. And I feel that and then that's another massive problem with, I think there's like 8 groups in Serie D. I think what they need to cull a lot of that out and just emulate what England has done with their 3rd and 4th division. And you'll find that the quality of culture will rise from there. And you'll be hearing very little about these bloody bankruptcies that go on all the time.
EPL is not helping for the bankruptcies, in my opinion. Like, not the EPL itself, but this huge difference between the English football versus the Italian calcio. The rights, the TV rights, essentially, is like one of the biggest. The sponsorships.
The marketing is way better with what they do. And honestly, too, even the promotion, even the teams that get promoted from Championship to EPL, the prize money is just extraordinary compared to what a Serie B club would get when they go to Serie A. It's night and day. Look at Nottingham Forest. They could they signed 20 or 19 new players. A club that just came from, the 2nd division that was stuck for so many years.
It's so true.
Now I'm back up there, yeah. So I just think there's a lot of things that can go, that can change with culture in general for the better. And I think that they have to be willing to change. I mean, you can't.
That's the key word, the willing to change.
Exactly.
So some hierarchies that need to drop off and change mentality. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that will be in a much better spot there. But we'll see what happens with it.
Thank you very much, Anthony. This was like a tremendous experience jumping down into Sicily with you. It was just like, even though in Australia, but we still jumped into Sicily, in Sicilia,
Exactly.
which was just like beautiful as it can be. So we will be meeting next week. And again, thanks to our special guest from the Sicilia Calcio, essentially.
Yeah.
And we'll probably meet you again on round 2 on the return leg if you want.
Of course, 100%. I was really happy to do it the first time. I'll be looking forward to the second time. Yeah, it was really good.
And hopefully Matt can make it this time before I punch him in the nose. No, I'm joking, of course. All right. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you next week, everyone. And Forza Genoa and Forza Palermo.
Forza Catania too.
You've listened to La Lanterna, a spotlight on Italian football, a podcast powered by Genoani Si Resta. Thank you for listening and see you next week.